Okay, hi everyone. I feel like we didn't have as much time as I would have liked you to have last class when you were starting on your spreadsheets. So to help you out today and make sure that everything we've done so far is correct and we see the shortcuts and advantages of our spreadsheets, I'm going to walk through the first setup. I'm going to go kind of fast, so you're going to need to pause and rewatch stuff as needed. Okay, so over on the right here I've got the instructions set up. I'm just going to follow each of these, and then on the left you'll actually see what it looks like in your Google Drive. So I've already opened up my account. I'm going to log in and click on New, Google Sheets. I'm going to go ahead and title it just like it says there, last name, first initial. So mine would be this. You'll put your last name and first initial, and then interest. Hit enter, and now it's titled. First thing I'm going to do is share it so you can get credit. It should say can edit, and you'll type in hall@nevada.ccsd.net, nv.ccsd.net, and then you'll hit send. Okay, I'm not going to hit send just because I don't want to send it to myself. So I'll close that back up. Okay, so that's all the sharing information. To make it so that our words don't go larger than the cell like that and overlap into the next one, what you do is you can select the whole page by clicking in this white area right here. It selects all the cells, and I'm going to click on text wrapping and click wrap. That will apply it to the whole sheet, so I don't have to worry about that later. Okay, now setting up the headers. I'm going to click on A, and you can either click on A and hold down and drag over to D, or you can click and hold Shift. I'm going to merge these cells. Then on the next slide, I see I'm going to have to do that for F, G, and H. I'm going to go ahead and make E a little bit smaller just so we can see it. Merge that, and then I'll start typing in my headings. So 5,000, 11% APR, compounded annually, final answers, then year, principal. Notice I didn't merge these cells because it's too big, and so it wraps it, and that's how the bigger cells came. Now if you merged it and then typed it, no big deal. Final account balance, total amount you deposited, amount of interest earned. Okay, and then it looks like in the picture all of these are bold, and they're also centered. So we'll get that taken care of. Then the next two slides just talk about all the different actions that you can do in here. We've talked about editing cells. We talked about the names. A1, A5 would be this cell. This one would be B7. This would be C5. We've got our font options up here. Then we've got our alignment, colors, cells taken care of. If I want to change the width, maybe you didn't see how I did that earlier, but there's that little arrow that goes back and forth when I hover over this. And then if I want to change the way my answers get spat out, basically have the computer do the rounding and show a money sign for me, I'll put format as currency. So you're never going to type in the $sign when you're doing these. You also won't type in the commas unless it's like a title like this. I'm not actually having it calculate anything. Okay, now some features that it talks about here is if I were to put a 7 in this cell and drag that down, it's going to copy a 7 in all those. Okay, now if I were to put a formula in this cell like equals B2, okay, and drag that, it's going to copy the formula. Now why would it copy it like that? Well, let's see. Holding B2, I go down. Well, let's look at the formula up here in this box. That's equal to B2, then B3. See how it copies the pattern? B4, B5, B6. Why did the principal show up here? Well, that's because it's in B5. B6, B7, B8. So we have kind of a circular pattern going on. Okay, but that's how you copy formulas and individual numbers. To do a formula, we just type equals. It's kind of backwards from the calculator. You type the equal sign first. That lets the spreadsheet know you want it to calculate something. And if we wanted to calculate 7 plus 2, we could do that. But we could also say, I want you to calculate this cell plus this cell, and hit enter. Notice if I try to click out of it, it just starts changing my numbers. So I'll click the cell I want it to add, then hit enter to close that down. Okay, now notice my formula right here is A8 plus B8. Okay, when I drag that, it will follow the same pattern. So the next cell, it says A9 plus B9. The next one is A10 plus B10, A11 plus B11. So if I want my pattern to continue to add the same adjacent cells, I can drag it down. If, however, I wanted it to just add 5 to whatever it is, then I could drag that, and notice all of my formulas would change to A8 plus 5, A9 plus 5, A10 plus 5, and so forth. Okay, so those are some basic things going on with the formula. Requirement on this assignment is you need to use cell names. So anytime you're able to click a B3, you're going to use that instead of excuse me, you're going to use that instead of like 55. Okay, so we're creating the table from last class. Our job was to put the years in each of these. I'm going to show you a shortcut that's going to be helpful later using my formulas. I want the following cell, the one down below it in the year column, to be the one above it increased by 1. And if I do that, instead of typing the number 2 in, if I do that and I drag, it will just count for me because each of these cells says take the one above it and add 1. Take the one above it, add 1. Take the one above it, add 1. Okay. Our principal we start off with is $5,000. Oh, well, that doesn't look very nice. I want it to look like money. And actually, all of these are going to look like money. So I'm going to click the money button. So it'll do the rounding and pennies and stuff for me. My interest, we have 11% compounded annually, so equals, now what we would type in the actual calculator would be $5,000 divided by 100, take 11 of them. Okay, and it's compounded annually. There's our interest. But when I go to drag this, it's all going to be the same because every cell is just going to say 5,000 divided by 100 times 11. But I know that if it's compounding, my interest is going to need to change. So let's come back and look at that here in a second. Account balance is always going to be the principal plus the interest. Now I know the principal and interest amounts are going to change every time, so rather than typing in 5,000 plus 550, I'm just going to say take the cell that's 2 to the left and add it to the one that's 1 to the left, and then drop the final answer in this. Okay, the principal. Well, the next principal is the account balance from what's left over. How could I get this to show up right here? Well, yes, I could type in 5550. But anytime I'm noticing that, like the next time after I get this row, the answer is going to need to go into that cell. This answer is going to go into that cell. Anytime I see a pattern, that's a big sign that Excel can do it for me. If I want this cell to be the same number as what's in that cell, then I can tell it that. I want this to be equal to D3 and hit enter. And then when I drag it down, it will follow that same pattern. Wait, why didn't anything show? Oh, well, there's nothing in that cell. So a lot of your formulas are going to be tied together and they won't all turn out right until everything's done. Now let's go back to fixing this guy. We want our interest to be $550. If I were to drag this, our interest is not going to be 5,000 divided by 100 times 11. It needs to be 5,550. So if I want this, instead of doing 5,000 every time, to just always take the cell to the left of it every time, then I need to change my formula and use a cell name for the 5,000. So I'll delete that out and then click on B3 and hit enter. It gives me the same answer up there, but when I drag it, now I have my new formula. This formula is continuing. Hey, and look what just popped in there. Now, if I'm going to drag all 3 of these down, I can do that. And notice how my numbers aren't correct until I get all of them down. So double checking this, I've got the principal divided by 100 times 11. Account balance is those two added together. This one is equal to the account balance. Interest divided by 100 times 11. Those two added together. This one equals the previous account balance. Same pattern all the way along. Okay, now over here, this is to help us compare our answers, as we're going to have lots and lots of rows on our future tables. So the final account balance is exactly what it says. It's coming from the account balance column, and it wants the final one. So I want this answer to equal that. So our final account balance for this investment is $7,590. I deposited $5,000, and the interest I earned is going to be this plus this plus this plus this. Now, on this particular one, that's not a big deal. But when you get to your problems later on and you have 50 rows or 30 rows to add, that's going to take forever. So once again, patterns are what Excel does. So what we can do instead is we can type in sum. That's the answer to an addition problem. By telling the calculator, I want you to sum up all of the interest, I can click on 550 and either hold and drag or hit Shift and then C6. And then when I hit enter, it will add up everything in that box. Okay, so that's how you do the first table. Hopefully that gives you all the tips and things you need. When we go to do our second table, oh man, I forgot to color those. We'll do it this way. When we go to your second table, copy and paste is very, very helpful. Copy and paste 2 rows below, and then we'll change this up. It's going to be compounded, what, semi-annually? Now when you do this copy and paste, remember you're going to need to change up your formulas and your interest and stuff like that. So you can either delete all of this and then go back and change the formula and then drag them down, okay, or you can start it from scratch. Okay, I hope that helps. Have a great day. You've got 3 more tables to get taken care of. The second one you've done already in class. Again, notice that when you click on any of my cells, you don't see a number sitting there. You see cell names and formulas, the math it took to get it. Okay. After you create these 2, you're going to have 2 more to create from scratch that we haven't done. But with the skills you've gotten on these, you should be good to go. Okay, thanks so much. Text me if you have a question or send me an email and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I'm able.